Okei, nisto ako ka mini poka. No to me akaik
Inkare and Nakode.
My name is Priscilla Powder Forbister. I am a parent of
I am Julia
Three
Auger
children.
of Powder Prairie Métis
My name is
Settlement.
Robert Cardinal. I'm from Enoch First Nations.
I'm Rob McGarva, and I'm from Barhead. And
My name
that's
is
part of the Pembina
Carmelita
Hills School.
Rabbit. I am from the Fort Whoop area.
My name
on
is
the
Ira
Glendenning
Provost.
River.
I'm with Lethbridge Public Schools.
Tom McDonald, and I am originally from Edmonton, but moved up to Fort McMurray, and I'm currently teaching at Westwood Community
My
High
name is
School.
Rosemary Pratt, and I'm from
My
Anzac.
name's John Proctor,
Alberta.
and I'm the principal of Father Our Parents School in Jonvier, Alberta.
Engaging communities, parents, and families in the future of education of their young people is essential if we want the students in those communities to find genuine and lasting success in school and beyond. Focusing on First Nation, Métis, and Inuit student success has helped us to provide direction for future consultations and partnerships with our First Nations, Métis, and Inuit communities, parents, school authorities, and other education stakeholders. But no one initiative, no single organization is going to accomplish much if it tries to operate alone and in isolation. My ministry is committed to finding new and innovative ways to enhance and support education in Alberta. We believe one of the best ways is to encourage the active participation of parents, families, and communities in the education of their young people.
Well, school boards are increasingly recognizing the importance of communicating with any parent regarding their son or daughter's education and all the ramifications of that for their future. And particularly important, of course, is communicating with parents of a First Nations, Métis, or Inuit background, because it's very important to build those strong relationships with the home, with the school, and with the student for a child to succeed. Well, I think increasingly we need to meet parents where parents find themselves. It's no longer enough for a school district or a school board or a individual school to say, come and meet us in our school. We need to meet parents on their own turf, Jeff, and on their own ground, so that we can involve them in a way that's comfortable to them and in a way that's welcoming to them. You know, I think we all need to recognize we failed our First Nations, Métis, and Inuit children and our students. That's their parents, their school systems, and society as a whole. The overwhelming impression you come away from every conference that you go to, every meeting that you go to, is that we have a huge problem to solve, and we need to solve it together.
Very encouraged about the Memorandum of Understanding, the Tripart Memorandum of Understanding. I do hope that the parties to that memorandum, especially the provincial government, understand that at the end of the day, it's school authorities that are charged with delivering education to some of these kids, and we want to be a partner as well.
In developing the framework itself, we've had so many questions that were asked by not only our stakeholders, but from communities on how we can implement this province-wide. So we are engaged now in working with our school authorities, with FMNI communities at different stages in implementing this collaborative framework. And we are truly proud of this piece of work because it took the collective community to create it, that involved, of course, again, as I recap, the school authorities, the FMNI parents, the elders, the community experts, children who were involved in having their voice heard as well. The role of elders in our children's lives is really fundamental in their lifelong educational journey. So, which is why we've included them here in this model, to clearly have that prominence as well. And then within the circle set, then we move to the next circle, which integrates the 5 components. The 5 components include the collaborative partnerships, include community schools, capacity building, adaptive organizational practices, and cultural responsive educational practices. And these are the components that we feel are necessary to building relationships. The first component, of course, is the collaborative partnerships, and this is one of the most important, not to say the most important, but a really important aspect of how we establish and work with the collaborative framework itself. In that we have to create those relationships where we have shared decision making, we have individuals who are from within the leadership who are involved to help shape the framework itself, that we need to have continuous planning. And in order to make that happen, we need to have partners who are willing to collaborate with us on this very important initiative. So when we look at community education, we also acknowledge that it reinforces the belief that community members must have a meaningful participation, be involved in teaching and learning that occurs within the school programs in order to enrich the program, in order to make education relevant for their children as well and for themselves too. So it really incorporates that school communities encompass developing a sense of safety and belonging for the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit students and their learning environment. And of course, the whole theme itself relates to work presently being undertaken within many of our jurisdictions. There are already much work being undertaken to develop collaborative working relationships within the various zones within Alberta itself. And many of them are at different stages in the development of their collaborative frameworks, and it's so encouraging to see that. We have already witnessed many successes. We've seen some of the collaborative partnerships taking shape by the involvement of our school authorities with their local First Nations communities, for example, in the cultural events that take place and spiritual ceremonies, and having that dialogue across tables on one-to-one, discussing those common elements of education. And it's really encouraging to see that those relationships are beginning to emerge. Moving then to capacity building. This supports the need for continuous professional development for all staff to build their skills, their knowledge, and their understanding.
We are actually the largest, owning 1/3 of that. So it's a certain pride of being the largest land-based Aboriginal community. And being Métis, we're always proud of who we are and our culture. So when we go into society, we are proud to say we are from Paddle Prairie, we're from the largest land-based community in probably Canada. And we're Métis, and we're proud of it.
As a teacher here, I want nothing but the best for the children of the community, and I want them all to be successful. And the same as I would want for my own personal kids, I want the same for every child in the community. And if I could, I really believe and would like to push for more community involvement and the parents to have more say in their child's education.
For me, a door was open today, or the other day when I got a call to come to this. And I think that says a lot, because you're talking about community involvement, and what better way to get a member involved by lifting up the phone and inviting them down.
This group is nothing like I envisioned. I really, really learned a lot today. It opened my eyes, and I'd like to see more of this.
I want to see something rolling, like the suggestions, children's services. There was one over here. There has been a lot of good suggestions today, and I think they have to be acted upon, not just kept here.
The way we are in Alberta, in the southern community, there's a long history of a lack of communication, a lack of understanding, a mistrust. And so those things need to be discussed openly and honestly. And there must be a genuine interest to make changes and to do things differently. And this will really benefit the First Nation students, their parents, and the community.
But I went to a conference where I heard Dr. Martin Brokenleg say that don't believe the myth of the residential school, that your culture was diminished. If you even spent the first 3 years with your biological parents, then you know your culture. And I really believe that, because there are things that I knew, because I grew up here in Calgary, there are things that I knew that I wasn't taught in school, and I don't remember my mother teaching me, like from when I can start remembering. So that's one thing that I know some people say, quit talking about residential school. It is a part of our history, but I've never ever focused on that with my children, just as my mother focused that I was number one, and that not to believe, or that you're less than anybody, and that's what I've taught my children.
One of the things that we've done in our district, for example, is we've worked on a process of working together to show that parents and teachers have the same goals, but they might have different roles. So how do we merge those roles together, and how do we look at it in that circular context that shows that all of the things that we do are related? We have to make sure that we're connecting with parents on that level, not just a questioning or a methodology that's going to put them in defense mode. Or make them feel that we're going back into that old colonial process of directing rather than connecting. So,
I truly believe that if we ever come together, it's not changing that system, it's not changing the Western type system, but only embracing it and bringing the holistic approach to education. And that's where they'll find a big change in students.
Because there's some very, very important things that we need to talk about. And one of those is residential schools and how that affected the parents of today, that affects education for Aboriginal people. Because many times you hear that, how come Native people don't, why is education not important to them? We need to tell our story, what the residential schools did to us.
My second teaching assignment was in a large white brick building that the band had taken over, and their band office and their community college was in part of it, and the elementary school was in the other half. And it used to be a residential school. So I had elders coming into my classroom telling me that they slept in that corner over there. The legacy of residential schools is only a couple generations away, and we are still experiencing the fallout from that, the lack of trust, the bad memories, the separation of families, as a result, the lack of parenting skills. My recommendation is that it's an ongoing, generational, slow developmental process of healing. And we take each situation day by day and do our best towards making schools a positive experience and accepting and respecting the cultures of the children.
So a lot of this stuff is being freshly presented to kids nowadays, and they're starting to hear about the negative aspects, and they didn't have that opportunity before. So now they're in the uncomfortable position where these things are coming out in the open, and they're starting to feel things that maybe they wouldn't have felt earlier on. So I guess it's important for school boards, parents, communities to make sure that the children, this generation, understand that this is a healing process that is going to take time, and it's something that has, even though it happened a long time ago, there are effects today. But again, the focus needs to be on working through the process and overcoming the issues that are facing them now.
In the past, the moment that an Indigenous student would walk into those schools, you could not look around and see yourself there. You could not look around and see that your culture, your language, you couldn't see that. Times have changed, so you do see more of that. But I would also suggest that Western systems have to reach out. They have to go beyond the doors of their own schools. And it's getting a little bit better that way. They are moving a little bit in reaching out. And when they will go to the community and build a relationship and engage in a relationship with the community, then things might start to change, because education is not just in the 4 rooms of a building. It's on the land, it's spiritual, it's our interconnectedness to everything, to the plants, the animals, all of this. So, when we're trained in those Western constructs, we're trained within that system that says often that school is in that building. And as a result of that, we expect children to come to this building. And I think sometimes we have to look at changing that and invite the system, the school, to come to the community.
I mean, we've all, many of our people have been raised, differently. They have different values and their culture is different. So I think that now the schools are beginning to understand and see that, yeah, you know what, there is differences. So we need, in order for us to move forward, we need to, make changes in our schools.
I think it's one-on-one. You can spend time with parents one-on-one more and just take the time to maybe even go visit them and phone them and just make sure you open a door and so they can even feel safe themselves and they're not intimidated by, the authority and things like that. You can build on that and get them involved.
With our native school liaison workers, they do a great job of communicating with parents, but what we've also done is talk to the teachers about making direct contact with parents and inviting them to come into the schools and talk about positives as well as negatives. That's not just every time the teacher calls there's something wrong going on. And we try to have celebrations in the school rather than the teacher just calling to say little Johnny's not doing his work properly. But to make them feel like school is a positive place for them, because for a lot of people, school is not a positive place for a lot of adults.
I think one of the things that we should be doing is encouraging Aboriginal parents to be sitting on some of our parent councils within the schools. It makes it easier for Aboriginal parents to come into the schools if they have someone that they know either from their home community or a community down the road.
Have someone try and build a relationship with that family. If you have a relationship, you can do anything you want. But in order to do that, sometimes you have to agree to meet on neutral territory. You have to be willing to do what works in each situation. And it's important that whoever is at the meeting, the parent feels that at least one of those people is their advocate. Because otherwise they're feeling judged, they're feeling like they just don't fit, they don't belong. And I think that's part of the reason why we don't have many FNMI parents attending school council meetings or any other parental things.
I think it's good. I think it's a long time coming. First Nations have been here for a long, long time, and I think it's important that they're at last putting some stuff in motion.
The greatest thing about workshops is collaboration. I think too many people are trying to do things on their own. I'd like to see more of this in the communities as opposed to people coming out to these things. I wish there was more of, and I talked to Debbie about that, about bringing this type of setup into the community so you can actually have a big, representative of the community. Maybe if you get 60% of the parents to turn out and then get those people involved, I think that's where you're really gonna change it up,
And if the parents feel that they have ownership or a personal stake in the school, and of course they do have a personal stake, which is their children, but I think more of an ownership feeling, ownership of the building itself, the division, the local authorities, or any ownership in that, then they're going to take a sense of pride, and the quality of their involvement will improve a great deal.
I think we've all heard the negative things of education. It doesn't matter what it is. We hear enough of it. We need to express our optimism in order for it to move on. Could be the littlest thing or the biggest issue, but we can overcome it.
I'm thinking that this workshop is really positive, and it's another step that we could take to encourage our families to support children's education, but as well as our schools to see the importance of getting our parents involved in their education.
It was awesome, and I'm glad, like I said again, I'm just new at this, and it's learning, and everything is knowledge.
It's time that the Native people or Aboriginals, First Nations have to speak out.